Fosh and Chops. Fosh and Chops. We should visit a pub for Fosh and Chops. That's my terrible impression of a New Zealand accent. Because it's a Friday, that's when you have fish and chips, isn't it? And it's International Sauvignon Blanc Day. And we don't often do international days, but there was a sort of magical coming together because of International Sauvignon Blanc Day. We're actually going to try 2 today. We're not going to go mad. But they are from a specialist in New Zealand where they say Fosh and Chops. I'm really sorry about this. Melanie Brown, a New Zealand chef she's set up, crikey, she's won everything. Specialist Cellars in London. We're going to try her wines today, and they all come from New Zealand. And Melanie has Specialist Cellars specialising in the New World, New Zealand where it sort of kicked off, but also in Australia. And you can go to Pop Market in Brixton when it reopens, which is where she's at, but she's also online. Specialist Cellars, well, it'll say down here. I can't remember if it's com or co.uk. But anyway, go to Specialist Cellars because they're brilliant. And Melanie wins everything. Look, I'm going to scroll through. You've already seen them. Photographs of Melanie winning all sorts and meeting very famous people like Sam Neill, New Zealand winemaker, at all sorts of events. She's great. She's a great friend and she's friends of friends and she's brilliant. And she now has an interesting and brilliant restaurant called The Laundry, which you should go and visit. It's really, really good food. Everybody absolutely loves it. Great wines. I'm going to start straight away with a wine she's made. This she's made with Ben Glover, and it's a Marlborough New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. And what I want to do today is to break away from what my brother refers to as Chateau de Limonade syndrome, where it is Kiwi Sauvignon Blanc, but it's not echt. It's not the real thing. This is the real thing, and it's vibrant and zesty and zingy, and there's guava and kind of gooseberries, but much more interesting things. Everybody sort of bangs on about gooseberries, but there's so much more in this. So this is called New Press. It's a range of wines that Melanie's made, because there is also a Rosé and there's a Pinot Noir that's in the same range. And I think there's other bits and pieces that are coming along. Really good Kiwi Sauvignon Blanc builds around this limey citrus, but it's more about its personality. It's bright and vivacious and energetic and zingy, and that's what people have fallen in love with. There's also a direction about it. I remember somebody once saying that all wines are complex except Sauvignon Blanc, which should do one thing really, really well. I think it's unfair. It does do other things really well. It should be mouth-watering, which it is, and eager. This is a wine that kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, Montana in Marlborough, they started planting in 1973, something like that. I remember reading, it was Oz Clarke. I'm sure I've got his book somewhere. Here it is. Brilliant book. Oz, who kind of championed New Zealand. So Oz, if you're there, thank you for championing New Zealand when everybody else, and particularly Sauvignon Blanc, was kind of being sniffy about it. And there's a lovely bit in here, I was reading it the other day, that there was a royal commission after the war that said that New Zealand wine would be considered undrinkable in other countries. And yet today, it's transformed because it just does one thing really, well, not one thing, it does lots of things, but New Zealand Sauvignon, they just said, right, we're going to do one thing really well. I'm sure I've heard a story, I don't know if this is apocryphal, that a lot of the Sauvignon Blanc that was planted, it was meant to be another grape, it was mislabelled. And I know it's certainly true that there are stories of people planting, knowing so little in a way about viticulture, they planted the vines upside down rather than with the roots at the bottom. They planted the heads in, so the roots were sticking out in the air. And yet, look at what's come out of this. New Zealand consistently has the highest average sales price, retail sale price in the UK, certainly, and I'm sure probably overseas. Why? Because they make wine we really want to drink. And there's all this magical climate, and there's sun pouring in, and it's bright, and it's clean. And you know what? I have no idea if that's really true, because no one's ever invited me to go to New Zealand. So I've never been. It might surprise you, but people sort of say it's the one place you'd really like to go. I'd love to go to New Zealand. I've never been. Ever. I do know a lot, snark alert, about the business class wine lists to New Zealand, because every wine journalist who goes seems to go out and then have to tell all their friends by way of humble bragging about being taken to New Zealand how amazing the wine list is when they're travelling out. But I would happily go at the back of the plane. I'm small. Every seat is business class for me. So I will sit at the back of the plane, but I'd really, really like to see what New Zealand is like. Never happened for me. New Zealand producers. And here I am championing your wines. That is really gorgeous. Now, how much is this? £10. £10. Now, if you're thinking, oh yeah, but I'll get something else on an offer, this is a totally different wine. There is a clarity and a cleanliness about this. This is really, really super stuff. It says here, it represents that Marlborough Sauvignon character. It has got this really ripe acidity, and it says it goes really well with fettuccine or maybe bigage chicken. No. I did look up how to speak New Zealand, and fettuccine is pasta dish, but bigage chicken is not a dish. It's where you leave your suitcase at the airport. The bigage chicken. God, there's going to be Kiwis hating this. Heath, I'm really sorry. Heath's wines are coming out next week, and he's a proper Kiwi, and he'll be really, really cross. Oh, right, our partner today is the WSET, and we've got a thing for you. We have the WSET Top of the Class Challenge. And I really hope you're going to join in on this. Every Friday, the WSET are setting a themed quiz to put your knowledge to test while giving you the opportunity to learn something new. The subjects change every week, and it's fun and a free thing to do, totally free, to extend your knowledge. So, newbie, wanting to go and learn a few facts, you can join in. If you're an enthusiast and you just want to check you do know that stuff, then you can come and check in with us. So, we've got a sign-in box just down here. Charlotte set this up. Thanks, Charlotte. Charlotte knows a lot. Get Charlotte on, actually. After lockdown, I'm going to get Charlotte. I'm going to make you come on this. So just down there, go and have a go. Go and give yourself a try. And there might be a rosé question, in which case you can come up with your notes from Kano Rosé. This is from Central Otago in New Zealand. I'm pretty certain this is £12.95. It's about to land. It's not yet in the specialist Cellars website, so it's just there. The pricing, more accurate data will be down here. Now, I believe that this is from the Jerome Vineyard. Now, this is in an area called Central Otago, the world's southernmost wine region. Get that in your little wine quizzes. So Central Otago, so it's actually south of South Island, and it's beautiful and mountainous. And we've got a Central Otago wine coming up next week, which I just adore. It is one of those regions which is beautiful. My parents have been there, absolutely love it. What sort of rosé is this? It is not a Provençal-alike rosé. There is a sweetness, a sweet cherry character to it, and a plush feel. It is a more food-friendly rosé, I think. This is certainly something to try with slightly more aromatic, slightly spicy dishes. It'd be heaven. Oh, this is really gorgeous. It's a riper, plusher style of rosé, squished berries. Not squashed, squished. That's what they like. Let me tell you a bit about it. The Lloyd family fell in love with this site. I'm not surprised I've seen the pictures. Obviously not been. Decided to plant a vineyard on it, and they called it Te Kano, which means seed in Maori. Just for a slight deviation, this week I read a thing, because this is the anniversary of the first Maori to come to, and I wrote his name down here, Moihanga. And this is the anniversary of the first Maori to discover Europe. And Moihanga came on a ship called the Ferret in 1806, and he met various aristocrats and reputedly met King George III and Queen Charlotte. Queen Charlotte, who was reputedly the first, the last biracial royal before Meghan Markle, I seem to remember. So yeah, he came to London and apparently got money and tools from King George III, who was a very benevolent, lovely king. He was very into agriculture. It's uncruel to call him mad. I mean, he had a disease, and he was a very kind king. So yeah, and then he travelled back, and apparently people met him in the 1820s, and he remembered his trip to Europe, and he'd come across. He spent a bit of time over here. So Moihanga, the first Maori to discover Europe. And we have to think about it that way. There's a really good thread about how he sort of came and met the locals. And to this day, they still indulge in all their traditional sports that he observed, like cricket and rugby and so on. So cheers to Maoris. And it's really lovely the way that New Zealand, and I know Australia as well, is embracing that heritage. And you see in wine a lot a keenness to embrace Maori heritage in names and labels and in the way that the wine regions are celebrated. And of course, lots of them share both names like Marlborough, which is from the Duke of Marlborough, Churchill's ancestor, but then also Kano, which is... and there's a few others which are going to come up where we'll have some next week. Right. Well, that's nice. That really is delicious. Don't just go for rosés which are in that very pale Provençal frame. They're nice, they're herbaceous. They shouldn't all be like that. I want to go back to some of these which got a bit ripe fruit on them. There's a lovely cherryish character there. So I recommend that. That is really good. And now this is Sauvignon Blanc, but not as we know it, Jim. Star Trek reference. This is Loveblock Orange Sauvignon Blanc from 2018. Now this is £22.50, but what an adventure of a wine this is. So lots of Sauvignon. This is a classic style, really keen, fresh, bright, and that's what we've fallen in love with. Now we're ready for the next stage, and this is orange because it's sat on its skins. Not only that, you'll see it's certified organic, but it's also vegan, and there's an amazing thing about this. So it sits on its skins, and it means that you get orange peel, saffron. I get chamomile, like chamomile tea. Really, really lovely. It's more apricotty, so it's moving away from lemon lime citrus into orange citrus, pith citrus, that kind of thing. But when you taste it, you get a slightly tannic feel. I have a question about this that has just come in. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here. This is from Chris Graham. My wife and I are really enjoying the show live. You've been inspired to take the WSET Level 2 online course. You better do that quiz a bit later on. But one thing I struggle with identifying is tannins in wine. Can you suggest the best examples of tannic and non-tannic wines? Well, I'm going to give you two recommendations. Because you think of tannins as being in red wines. Absolutely. Go and try a Nebbiolo and a Gamay, Beaujolais. Nebbiolo, very high tannins. Beaujolais, Gamay, very low tannins. But also, try these two. This, effectively no tannins in a white. Here, it's unencumbered by anything else. So the tannins, you can see what bit they play in a white if you added tannins. And it's a really nice thing. It makes it more food friendly. Oh, you could do all sorts with this. This is made by Erica and Kim. They tend not to use their surnames because Kim's surname is Crawford. And there is a wine brand that he and Erica set up called Kim Crawford. This is so different from Kim Crawford wines. Some of them are nice wines. This is a totally different thing. This is a sort of love project, Loveblock. Now, the really interesting part for wine geeks is there's no added sulphur in this at all. So winemakers add a bit of sulphur dioxide. Wine fermentation itself adds a bit of sulphur. We'll get into this in another day. You know what they use instead? Green tea. And it's the antioxidant properties of green tea that they use to as a preservative rather than going and adding sulphur dioxide. It's really interesting. Still fresh as a daisy. That's lovely. It's sophisticated. It's like a very posh bathroom in a weird way. It's very stylish. There's almost something cologne-like about the aroma. It is. It's like cologne, like really expensive cologne. Don't let that put you off. It's just as a hint of it in the... Beautiful. Oh, I like that a lot. Gallotannins, no, I can't remember what they're called. Gallocatechins, epigallocatechins. That's the antioxidant in tea. Right, a couple of recommendations. There's a book. Look up on screen now. Which Wine When? This is a brilliant new book about how to match wine to the food we eat every day. It was going to come out as a hardback, but they've launched as an e-book just now. The hardback will come a bit later. From the two authors, Claire Strickett and Bert Blaize. Claire and Bert have amazing heritages, brilliant heritages. Claire's worked in lots of kitchens, restaurant marketing. She now works in strategy, but she's worked with people like Skye Gingle, Rowley Lee, Russell Norman, Gales Bakery, and Bert was at La Belle Epoque in Manchester, Le Manoir at Quatre Saisons, came to the Clove Club. I've been talking to some of the Soms there actually last week or so in East London. And he collaborated with Dan Barber on a revolutionary Wasted project when it came to London. Named one of the top young sommeliers in London. And Bert can we talk? Because I've got this book about sommeliers and I want to go and talk to you about that because I think you're the perfect person to be in it. So they've come together. It's fun and easy to get into, and it cuts through an awful lot of the nonsense around wine that I normally come up with. So go and buy that book. Get it as an ebook just now. So we've got a link down here as to how you can go and get hold of a copy of it. Available from today. New Zealand is Sauvignon Blanc Day today. It's launch day for which wine when. Right, let's have a couple of questions before. Oh, some shout outs. I'll need a glass for this. Helen Pratt, hello. You watch the show religiously. Does that mean you kneel down? Or you confess to doing it afterwards? I'm sure not. Happy birthday, Helen. Thanks very much for watching the show and for following us. And I hope, tell us what you were drinking. I want to know. Go and send us a thing and say, actually, I was drinking this when I was watching on my birthday. I hope it's something really good. I'd send you one of these, but I don't know where you live. And you'd be weird if I just turned up in the next 10 minutes. Although apparently somebody who'd quite like me to turn up the next few minutes is Louis's grandmother, Barbara, or as I like to call you, Babs. Hello, Barbara, who's been watching the show and really enjoying it. And I'm delighted. And somebody did say you have apparently a bit of a crush. Now, oh, sorry, I've made you blush a little bit. Say it quiet because Mrs. F is downstairs. She doesn't need to know. We'll just keep that between you and me. Meet up later on for a glass of wine. Oh, apparently, you haven't missed a single episode. That's really kind of you. I've nearly missed 1 or 2 episodes. Then I sort of race up here to go and do my bit. Couple of questions. Hey, Joe, this is from Chris from Orlando. Hello, Chris. We've had a question or 2 from you before. Keep them coming, though. I love your questions. For those of us who are currently single, not for long, I suspect. I've seen you. He's a big, strong, handsome man, is Chris. But love wine. Once open, how much time do you have to finish a bottle and how best to store it? What's during that time frame? All wines, red or white, put them in the fridge. All wines, red or white, not sparkling, try and take as much of the gas out of the top with some device. So I use a Coravin, which I can't lay my hands on just now, but I use a Coravin sometimes. You can use a Vacuvan pump, like the thing I had on my head. That helps, but get it in the fridge. And then I tend to sort of say with whites, imagine you've just opened a bottle of milk. That's sort of roughly how long it takes. Reds, sometimes a bit longer. But the bigger, more acidic, more tannic, the longer life they have. You know what? That wine I decanted the other day from Wednesday, I had some 24 hours later. And in fact, I've had some about 48 hours later and it's got better and better. So some wines even improve. And that was at room temperature. Julie Crampton. Is there any wine or grape variety you really don't like? Julie, you don't like Gewürztraminer. That's quite particular as well. Very low acid, very aromatic. There are an awful lot of these very floral characters in it. I kind of get that. I just don't really get the taste of most Pinot Grigio. But I've got one coming up next week, which I adore. But a lot of Pinot Grigio I just find woolly. It's got to come from somewhere very high up. And funnily enough, I know I've got one coming up next week, which is from very high up, which I love. But a lot of low-lying Pinot Grigio I struggle with a lot. No, not really. Just quite like wine. Tom, who's the PT Studio Tom. You're looking to move into wine. You've done your WSET level 2 and you want to move into wine. I've got to tell you right now, it's really challenging because a lot of wine is sold in restaurants and restaurants are shut. The WSET does a brilliant sort of business course on wine and that's worth looking into, going and looking into that. Otherwise, you know what? If you're good at selling stuff, go and talk to particularly agents who sell into restaurants and into other wholesalers. That's a good way to go. Drop me a line, I'll introduce you to a few people. And Emily from Shoreditch. Hello, Emily. When is the wine show airing and where can we watch seasons 1 and 2? Seasons 1 and 2, link down here. Hulu and Amazon Prime. All there. All episodes. Go and watch them now. Season 3, Series 3, we speak both languages across the Atlantic, is this summer. I think sort of, I want to say June, something like that. We're very, very nearly there. Then it has to get sort of uploaded and stuff. I don't know exactly where or when. I tell you what, though, if you're in Sweden, it's coming to Sweden right now. I tweeted about it the other day, so go and look in Sweden and Norway. And in fact, Sweden's going to show series 1, 2 and 3 all at the same time. It's really good because that's where my in-laws are. Thank you for joining us. Remember, follow, like, share, subscribe to all our feeds. Go and buy these wines from especially Cellars. Thank you so much, Melanie, for sending these wines in. They are really delicious. Bright and zesty, ripe and fruity and lush. Utterly fascinating. Really delicious, classy wine, that. And I'll see you all again on Monday.